All right, everybody, time for another stage of building on our Titan T-51D Mustang. I'm here with Lithra. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
The work has been amazing. I mean, so you just recently finished up doing all of the coolant manifolds and the heater core, everything that goes in that side. That was in our last video. Now it's time to turn our attention to the firewall and all the components that go on that. The firewall is like a puzzle. And that is because we have a number of components that have to mount there. Everything's unique to every aircraft setup. And so let's talk about the cooling system to start with. The way that the cooling system works, obviously we've got the radiator towards the back, we've got the hoses that we brought forward, the manifold, heater. But when those come forward to the engine that's going to feed all of that and get the return back, what we need to put there is going to be two things. One is going to be the expansion tank, which looks like a tall metal thermos bottle. We've got to find a location for that. Yep. That remains sealed. We get all the air out of it, and that allows the expansion to happen. And then from that, there's two different lines. So we've got the feed line at the bottom, and that you already hooked up to the manifolds, so that comes in. And then we've got two other things. One is about 3/4 of the way up. We've got another fitting that's going to go to the heads and the top of the water pump that's going to help bleed out air, and it goes to these things, these steam tubes that are as part of the engine. On there. So that's going to come about 3/4 of the way up that kind of thermos bottle expansion tank. And then at the very top we've got the overflow. That is a small tube that comes out to a plastic container that we have, which is really similar. You've seen this in your cars. So that's where you check the coolant level, looking through this kind of white plastic, seeing the level, adding if need be, etc. So that square bottle's got to be located, the expansion tank's got to be located, and then we'll be really kind of ready for the rest of it when the engine gets mounted. All we have to do is get the connections to the water pump from the two manifolds. But there's more than just that, because we've got two other things. First of all, we've got the oil system. The oil system we don't have to do much on right now. You've put in some holes and grommets, so we're going to be able to run lines once the engine is hung that go straight into both the oil filter and the oil pump, and kind of make that system work there. But that leaves us with fuel. And so for fuel, we have got to bring two lines through to the firewall and then work with them with the components at that point. The first one is going to be our actual feed line from the fuel tank, where the pump has been outputting high pressure fuel. And then the second is the return that goes back to the tank. Now the reason that there's a return is because we need to regulate the pressure of that fuel. The fuel pump doesn't actually regulate it, it just has a capacity of pumping. So it can put out a lot of pressure, a lot of volume. And of course, we'll talk about that in another video. We've got a redundant system with dual pumps, etc. So what we've done is you come out from that, and then you have to find a place on the firewall for a regulator. And a fuel regulator takes in, it's like a spring, basically a spring-loaded diaphragm-based device that allows the fuel to come in, and then beyond a certain pressure, it just returns it back to the tank. So you've got an inlet, an outlet, and kind of like a pressure bleed-off. So that is a component that we've got to find a location on the firewall, and then we have to go and plumb in how we're going to get fuel to it and how we're going to get the return fuel back out to the fitting that's going to end up going back to the tanks. We're not going to deal with tanks right now because that's part of our center section. So after the return, then you're left with one thing, which is the output. And that's the regulated fuel pressure and fuel flow that's going to go to the engine. We go into a fuel filter, the final filter, and then we go into a flow transducer, which will give us our flow rate for our engine monitor inside the aircraft. And then finally we can go to the fuel rail, and that'll show us everything. That'll make sure that we've got clean fuel, we've got it the right pressure, we know what the flow rate is of it. And so a lot of stuff in this puzzle. That's a lot of lengthy explanation, but I wind it all up by saying, Lister, it's up to you.
Yep.
You can now take this chess puzzle of figuring out how are we going to arrange it in this limited space, and knowing that there's very limited space both on the firewall itself, and then also knowing that there's belts and pulleys and things. There's areas we can't work with that we've got to map out. So we'll get to that, and going to start working on another stage of building on our Titan T-51D Mustang. Sounds great. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, the next item we have to mount on the firewall of our Titan Mustang here is our fuel pressure regulator. The fuel pressure regulator basically allows all of this fuel pressure that comes in from the fuel pump and then sets it to a very specific pressure for the engine, sends the rest of it through this return that goes back to the fuel tanks. But we've got to mount it on the firewall, and it comes with this bracket that you can mount, which is at this kind of strange 45-degree angle. So because of that, we need to bend it to 90 degrees to fit on our firewall. We're going to heat it up a little bit in this vise and bend it across. So let's get to work with this, and then we'll be able to put another piece on the firewall. You ready, Luther?
Yep, let's do it.
All right.
Oh yeah, that's easy to bend now.
That looks pretty 90 to me. All right, Litra, awesome job on the Firewall. That is so exciting to see this Firewall that's been completely empty, and then all of a sudden it's got drawings on it of where the water pump's going to be and where the pulleys are going to be for the alternator and the different parts of it. And then to see it come to life, it's like seeing a coloring book go 3D. We had a blank, like complete stainless steel Firewall, and then you put all these things on, and then all of a sudden it's got an expansion tank, it's got a fuel regulator, it's got the pass-throughs for coolant, for oil, all these different things, and then what, fuel filter, fuel flow,
and then the hole for the wiring harness that goes to the engine.
Oh yeah. Oh man, this stuff's moving so quick. You sure you have to go back to school?
Oh yeah.
I know, people, a lot goes on behind the scenes. It takes an incredible amount of time to both film, produce, and do all of this as well as building the aircraft, and I can tell you it's so much fun to be doing it as a team. So thanks so much for doing that.
No problem.
Absolutely. So for SocialFlight, I'm Jeff Simon, this is Litra, and be sure to check out SocialFlight.com and the free SocialFlight apps for Apple and Android devices. We have tens of thousands of aviation events, destinations. We have the SocialFlight Live show every Tuesday evening. Just go to SocialFlightLive.com and you can see these amazing guests who come on. And if you have the mobile app, be sure to check out the Fly to Win Challenge, where you can win some great prizes. Until next time, I'm Jeff Simon for SocialFlight, and I wish you all blue skies.